A lot of you, especially a lot of atheists, have taken issues with the points I made in part 1 of this series, saying things like, it doesn't matter if I don't have the burden of proof, I still need to explain myself, or we have to prove this or that before we can allow people to act on their own, as they'd be able to do in a libertarian society. Well, I want to turn to some of the most prominent atheists for support, the hosts of the Atheist Experience, in their recent episode number 813, and I want to post 2 clips from this show, where they absolutely back up pretty much everything I said in part 1. First, I want to play what they said to a caller who said we need God to explain the universe.
You make the claim you don't know. I've heard you say that several times. You don't know how the universe
Sure.
got here.
Before the Big Bang.
Okay, so why is it wrong for me to know?
Well,
How do you
know?
Well, in the beginning, God created the heavens and the earth.
Yeah,
we
how do you know
that you think
that?
How do you know?
How do you?
Sorry, 2 hosts here.
How do you know it's not true?
You're shifting the burden of proof. We don't have to
Doesn't
just prove
matter.
that.
Why does that matter?
Why does it matter?
Why
Okay.
don't you have to have the burden of proof?
Because we're not the ones that are claiming that we know. I'm sorry,
Well,
Corey.
exactly. So
Corey,
if you don't know,
Corey,
why can't I know?
Corey, knowledge is not something that you simply assert. Knowledge is demonstrated. And if you make a claim to knowledge, you need to demonstrate that it's true. Otherwise, there's no good. That's the way reason works.
Okay,
That's
hey, Corey,
the way.
Your reason.
Corey, are you infallible?
What do you mean by that?
Are you always right?
I think he means get a
Are
dictionary.
you?
Okay,
Answer
I'm
my
not playing this game. Goodbye.
See, I told you this was.
I'm not going to play the are you, were you, how do you know? Why? I'll tell you why. We establish a burden of proof because we understand that the application, by the way, you said, well, that's your reason. No, there's simply reasoning. There is the critical examination of evidence. Logic is not something where I've got my logic and you've got your logic. We know why, we know what logic works and why. There's a reason why I stick to propositional logic and constructed syllogisms, at least conversationally. And there's a reason why we establish the burden of proof. And that's because in your world, Corey, you get to claim that you know and you have no burden of proof. And so can 100 other people all know answers that don't agree with yours. And so now we're in a world where there's 101 different propositions out there that all claim that they know, and none of them agree with each other, and none of them want to take on the burden of proof. And what does the reasonable person do? Nah, screw all you guys. The first one of you that can actually demonstrate that your claim is true, that's where we're going to start saying, okay, let's investigate this further and find out if it is true. But all of you who are claiming that you shouldn't have any burden of proof, there's no reason any of us should care at all what you say. You might as well be saying that you know that M&Ms created the universe, because you have just as much evidence for that.
And here's what they said to a caller who was speaking against gay marriage.
I want to be a bit rushing without enough, basically.
No. The studies have been done already. People have already been concerned, like you, that there's a problem with gay people raising children, and they did the studies, and they found out there was not.
But none of that matters. This question, aren't we rushing? Aren't we rushing? First of all, no, we're not rushing. Second of all, you do not wait until you have an evidence that something is okay to do before you permit it. Instead, you permit things until you have good reason to think that you should not permit them.
Right, because
we have
all
been
other
wrongly,
things being equal.
hang on, we have been wrongly denying people equal rights based on naturalistic fallacies and all sorts of assumptions and fear that something may go wrong, and that is what is wrong. Not allowing people to have those rights is what is wrong. Instead, you allow people to have rights until you have good reason to take them away.
Realize that all I am doing here is taking these very same concepts and applying them to the rest of politics too. There is no difference.